The mouse has somewhat of a legendary status in War Thunder ever since its removal from the main German tech tree in 2019. It is the epitome of the German tank late war doctrine of bigger tank go rumble rumble, and consequently is simultaneously revered and hated by the community. It seems that everyone either says it's the best tank in the game or that it sucks and is completely useless. So today I'm doing a deep dive into the mouse, as it is in War Thunder as of update Danger Zone, and coming to a conclusion about its overall effectiveness in the game based on the statistics and my own experience in my 150 plus matches in it. On paper, the mouse looks pretty good. It sits at rank 5 at a battle rating of 7.7 and has enough armor to bankrupt the New Zealand Steelworks, which is the standout feature of this tank. The armor consists of 200mm on the upper and lower glacis plates, angled at 55 degrees and 34 degrees respectively. This gives the plates effective thicknesses of 348mm on the upper glacis plate and around 241mm on the lower glacis plate. The sides have 180mm on the upper side and 100mm on the lower side, which is accompanied by an 80mm plate behind the tracks, bringing the overall side armor to just over 180mm, if you include the tracks. The rear is protected by a main 150mm rolled homogeneous armor plate angled at 36 degrees, giving it an effectiveness of around 185mm. There is a lower rear glacis plate with the same base thickness but angled at 34 degrees with an effective thickness of around 177mm, although if you are playing the mouse you will very rarely get shot there. There is an additional 300mm strip of armor joining the side plate to the roof plate, which can catch a few people off guard when firing at you, causing a non-penetration and leading to them smashing their monitor in a fit of rage. The turret face is more protected than the hull in terms of raw thickness, with 232mm of armor in a semicircular shape, meaning that the further down or up you go, the higher the effective thickness. There is also a 240mm thick gun shield and a 100mm cone on top of that, surrounding the barrel. On top of all these hunks of steel, there is a 300mm flat circular thingy, which occasionally catches shells because volumetric. If anyone knows what this is called, please do tell me in the comments. The turret sides and rear are 205mm and 200mm thick respectively, angled out 30 degrees and 14 degrees respectively, giving them respective thicknesses of around 237mm and 206mm. Another positive attribute of the mouse is the max reverse speed of 21 km per hour, as well as the turret being so big that the designers somehow managed to squeeze a 75mm coaxial gun in there. More on that later. However, all of this armor and size comes at a cost. The mouse weighs a whopping 188 tons, making it the heaviest tank in the game and also the world. The sheer size of the vehicle makes the mouse have the highest visibility rating in the game, at 250%, which is the same as most top-tier AAA vehicles that are the size of buses. This means you will be shot at and frequently, which is where your armor shines. Thanks to the mouse's state-of-the-art petrol-electric drive system, the decent reverse speed of 21 kph is also your maximum forward speed. So enjoy moving slower than me when I have to study for exams. You can accelerate to the speed with your fantastic power-to-weight ratio of 5.61 to 1 stock and 6.38 to 1 spaded, about as fast as I accelerate out of bed in the morning. Although the mouse is slow and poses an easy target for every gunner with half a brain cell, it is able to return fire as well, bringing me onto the armament section. The mouse is armed with a primary 128mm KWK 44L55 cannon, which is a vehicle-mounted variant of the PaK 44 anti-tank gun, capable of dispensing one reinforced Bratwurst every 23.1 seconds with a stock crew and 18.2 seconds with an aced crew. It can elevate the gun between -7 degrees and +23 degrees at a rate of 2.8 degrees per second and 4 degrees per second on a stock and aced crew respectively. The turret, and therefore the gun, can traverse a full 360 degrees side to side at a rate of 5.6 degrees per second on a stock crew and 8.0 degrees per second on an aced crew. Your turret also contains a coaxially mounted 75mm KWK 44L/36.5 cannon with the same traverse and elevation angles, but a reload of between 5.2 and 4 seconds for respective stock and aced crews. There is also a coaxial 7.92mm machine gun to punish the light AA vehicles that dare tickle your glorious Kruppstahl. Both of these cannons can fire a variety of shells, which are up on screen now. The mouse's main gun can fire two types of ammo by default, a regular high explosive round and an armor-piercing high explosive capped round, which are both free. The HE round has a muzzle velocity of 750 meters per second and has 3.7 kilograms of TNT inside it, making it capable of penetrating around 37 millimeters of rolled homogeneous armor at all angles and distances. The default APHEC round has a muzzle velocity of 930 meters per second and has 786.5 grams of TNT equivalent filler, making it an objectively better choice since it can penetrate 252 millimeters of flat armor at point blank range and 172 millimeters of armor angled at 30 degrees at 1000 meters. A Tier 1 modification that grants you access to a more powerful APHE CBC round, which has the same explosive filler but can penetrate a maximum of 272mm of armor. There is also a Rank 4 modification that grants access to the King Tiger's 88mm shell, but fired out of the 128mm main gun of the mouse. This shell can penetrate a maximum of 312mm of rolled homogeneous armor at point blank range, and has a muzzle velocity of 1230 meters per second, although the superior flat penetration power comes at the cost of angled pen against higher angled plates, due to the smaller caliber of the round. You also sacrifice a bit of explosive filler. This round only contains 108.8 grams of TNT equivalent explosives, enough to one-shot most tanks reliably, but only if you aim center mass. If the shell is aimed off center mass, such as closer to the engine deck of a target vehicle, it might not kill all the crew with one hit, leading to a very pissed off enemy, while your reload gives you time to contemplate what little life you have left. Basically, this shell functions as a crappy sabot round with a little more post-pen damage. Now, onto the 75mm ammo. By default, you get an HE round and a heat round, the HLGR-38B, henceforth referred to as the B round because I have no idea what that stands for, and I can't be bothered saying HLGR-38B every single time I want to refer to it. Basically, the HE is useless as the B round has 80mm of flat pen versus 10 for the HE and can still reliably overpressure open-top vehicles, and also comes stock, so there's no cost in bringing it over the HE. A more potent heat round, the C round, was unlocked after researching a Tier 2 modification, which can penetrate an extra 20mm of armor over the B round, making it the objectively better choice. It does cost 90 silver lions per shot, but you make over 3,000 from a kill anyway without premium, so don't worry about that. The 75mm also gets access to smoke shells, which have a muzzle velocity of 423 meters per second and a smoke radius of 13 meters, perfect for smoking off roads or line of sight. In terms of actual usefulness, you aren't going to get a kill with them, but they can save you in certain situations, such as smoking an enemy's cover so they can't shoot you or your teammates as they push a cap point. Overall verdict on ammo: for the mouse's primary gun, the default APHEC shell is usable, but I would recommend upgrading to the APHE CBC round as soon as possible, as this is the best shell for the gun in terms of penetration and post-pen damage. The HE round on both cannons is, for all intents and purposes, useless, while the C heat round is the best one for the 75mm cannon. And the smoke is useful, but only in certain situations. One thing to note about the smoke is that since it is fired from the 75mm cannon, i.e. the secondary cannon, it doesn't compromise the ability of the mouse to return fire on an enemy if a smoke shell is fired. Most other tanks have to fire the smoke round out of their primary guns, which means that they are vulnerable for an entire reload cycle, while the mouse is not. In the event the mouse is caught out in a reload cycle, let's see what happens when it gets shot and how survivable it really is. Starting off with the pros, the mouse has a lot of armor. If you didn't pick that up already, I can't really help you. The armor on the mouse is thick enough to resist most shells you will come up against, but only if you angle. A theme common among German heavies, it seems. There are also 6 crew members in the tank, 4 in the turret and 2 in the front, and are separated from each other by 20mm internal rolled homogeneous armor plates. This makes one-shotting the mouse rather difficult, as an APHE round that somehow goes through your angled turret will kill a maximum of 4 crew, allowing you to back up behind some cover. In the turret, the 128mm cannon has a very large breach and is able to protect the crew members on the opposite side to where the shell penetrates from spalling, further increasing the difficulty of one-shotting this vehicle. The mouse also has quite a long barrel, which at longer ranges can help soak shells, especially if you'll wiggle your turret back and forth, because a combination of volumetric ping and just sheer Gaijin snail luck means that a shot to your barrel probably isn't going to take it out. That's about it for the pros, so now for the cons. The mouse has a first stage ammo rack on its left-hand side just above the track, which fills from the front to the back. The turret ammo rack fills last, and is also the easiest to hit from behind, so bring only around 20 to 25 rounds of primary ammo into each match to avoid filling this rack. The 75mm secondary cannon has an ammo rack on the right-hand side in the same relative spot as the primary ammo rack, although this rack is much smaller thanks to the small nature of the 75mm shells, which makes this rack harder to hit. Another con to survivability is the poor reactive mobility. By that I mean you are so slow that reacting to getting hit is difficult. This isn't so much a survivability thing as it is a quirk of the mouse, but it is important to mention as the best way to not get shot at is to be behind some solid cover. If you survive the first shot, reversing behind cover to escape enemy fire is difficult due to the underpowered engine and sheer weight of the mouse. I'll talk more about this in the Quirks section because it warrants further discussion. Back to survivability, it doesn't exist in up tiers. No amount of angling will save the mouse from ATGMs, though their effect can be mitigated by swinging the turret left to right to hopefully gaijin the missile on the weird turret geometry, like what can happen with shells at longer ranges. The mouse's armor is also bypassed by APFSDS and Sabo shells, especially at 8.7, mostly from Chinese vehicles such as the PTL-2 and WMA-301. So on to the quirks now, because this section is already a page long on my script and I want to get this video done before the end of the year. Hopefully. As mentioned previously, the mouse has low reactive mobility. Basically, this means the mouse takes a long time to respond to shots fired at it from any direction other than where the gun is pointing at. This is caused by the low turret traverse and underpowered engine, made worse by the sheer weight of the tank, which makes responding to enemy fire hard, especially at range, and makes playing the tank quite difficult. In addition to this, close-range engagements are risky because if an enemy tank gets on your flanks, you will be sent back to the hangar faster than you can scream 9 and smash your keyboard into a wall. However, at close range, it is possible for an enemy on your side to make a mistake and aim for your turret. Since the mouse is taller than almost every tank in the game and the sides of the turret angle inwards, a tank below turret level shooting upwards has more armor to penetrate due to geometry. I won't go into that here, but if you want a video on the mathematics of tank armor, I would be happy to make that. Just let me know in the comments. Since this geometry thing is the case, shooting the turret is inadvisable and sticking to a simple side shot is by far the best option. Another interesting quirk is that the turret cheeks actually overlap each other at the edges, which allows the mouse's turret cheeks to catch a few rounds when hit from the front or far sides. If an enemy finds itself on the mouse's side, a flat side shot might not do anything, since the mouse's radiators are bigger than a typical family car, and consequently soak a surprising amount of shells. Combined with their position directly in line with the optimal angling angle, an ATGM or heatslinger might find that although their shell penetrated the armor, it did little more than make the engine experience tropical conditions, which in War Thunder means nothing. After you slap an APHE CBC round through their tank and eject their turret into space, they have a tendency to come back in a plane with bombs to do the most skilled thing a War Thunder player can do: revenge kill. Expect this to happen a lot in the mouse, as it is practically a bomb magnet. An allied aircraft player who sees a large, slow, lumbering machine tends to send a 2,000-pound bomb, and sometimes the whole plane as well, right through the mouse's roof. Without a doubt, this is the most common way to die while playing the mouse, although it does have a tendency to survive such revenge-killing attempts. Just yesterday, actually, I survived driving right over a bomb as it exploded beneath me without so much as a scratch. Another survivability quirk is anti-trapshot armor, protecting the most angled part of the turret, which you can see in the second image at the bottom of your screen. That's about it for survivability quirks. A few gameplay quirks. Teammates have a tendency to try and tow you forwards or get towed by you at the beginning of the match for some reason, which is quite amusing. They also have a tendency to try and push you forwards, which doesn't do anything either, but is quite funny as well. Modifications are quite important to the mouse as well. Fully stock, it is a bit of a pain to play, so focus on getting parts and FP first before anything else, followed by the adjustment of fire upgrade. Afterwards, pick up crew replenishment to recruit an additional Hans in case Fritz gets hit in the face by a saber round. Elevation mechanism, horizontal aiming drive, tracks, the C heat round, and the smoke round can then be unlocked in that order, with everything else being up to personal preference. Although really anything past parts, FP, and crew replenishment, and the upgraded APHE CBC round can be gotten whenever you want. In terms of gameplay / playstyle advice, it's pretty simple. Stick with your team and stick to close range urban engagements whenever possible. The mouse is so slow, sluggish, and heavily armored that it is very easy to turn your brain off when playing it and think you're invincible. This type of thinking will get you sent back to the hangar before you have time to write a 2,000-word essay on the War Thunder forums about how Germany suffers and how every other nation is better at every BR. So don't do this, please. Playing the mouse requires mastery of the tank and all of its quirks and little gameplay gimmicks, most of which you will learn while playing the mouse. I would list them all in this presentation, but they are very situation dependent and would probably fill an entire video on their own. One useful trick is using your secondary 75mm cannon to bait out enemies. Often opponents forget that the mouse has two guns because it's so unlike every other tank, and consequently will push you if you fire your secondary gun slightly in front of the tank if they are around a corner, allowing you to shoot a 128mm spicy sausage through their side armor and send them right back to the hangar. Try to avoid engaging multiple enemies at once, just simply down to your poor reactive mobility and long reload, as it allows you to be easily flanked by anything except for maybe the T95 and T28, so take one-on-one engagements at close range if you are alone to avoid this issue. Also take the upgraded 128mm APHE round as soon as you unlock it, as this should be your primary round for slapping cocky Americans. Overall, the mouse is good but not overpowered as some seem to think it is. It is a very classic example of very easy to play, but very difficult to master. It has been slowly power crept out of the meta since 2019 due to the addition of, well, Sweden and many vehicles with heat and saber around the 6.7 to 8.7 BR bracket. The mouse is quite good in a down tier, especially against America, but only if played correctly. If played correctly, it can catch the enemy team off guard and can pull its weight in a match, and the ability of it to do so comes down to the armor. I don't think this tank is game-breaking, but I can certainly see why some people think it is. It is very difficult to kill if you don't know how, especially in a 6.7 game. To kill it, it is pretty simple. Either have an ATGM heat or sabo, or shoot for the center of the turret cheeks, or just flank it and shove around through its side armor. Anyway, to close out this video, I want to do a quick channel update over my list of sources as you can see on the left. Firstly, thank you guys so much for the support on my last deep dive video. The amount of views it's gotten over the time it has taken me to write this script is insane for my channel size. I can see that you guys like these types of videos and I will continue to produce more in the future. However, I do have exams next week and the week after that, so expect a maximum of one upload over this period. It won't be as high quality as this video, so any suggestions on some low quality topics would be appreciated. I might do a video on the new update, perhaps, and what I think of it. In terms of new things on my channel, I'm getting a Discord server set up at the moment, as well as some new thumbnail and banner art in the next month or so keep a lookout for that. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay salty, my lemons.